Good evening, and welcome to In the Public Interest. I am your host, Benny Macklin. You are watching us on WPHY Channel 25 and listening to us on WIMG 1300 AM, as well as live365.com. WIMG. And it's great to have you. Let's just first say that. And I truly know that you are going to enjoy our guest tonight. We're going to get right into it without any accolades or anything of that nature. We're just going to introduce him as Councilman Nat Anderson of Willingboro, New Jersey. Good evening to you, Councilman Nat Anderson.
Hello, how are you doing, sir?
I am great. If the introductory was a little long and winded there, I wanted to say Councilman Anderson, but I threw in the Nat in there because I think it's important for our listeners to know the gentleman that is sitting here with me tonight, so we can get some valid information, what you're doing with your new election, how the campaign is going, and more importantly, talk about the things that you have done for the city of Willingboro. I think this is going to be a great evening, and more importantly, as stated, information about the councilman, the man, Nat Anderson. So let's get into it. Once again,
Thank
in the public interest, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on the show, to be heard, to let the listeners know what's happening in this great city of Willingboro, New Jersey.
Well, we are getting ready to get into it. First, before we even start with understanding what's going on in Willingboro, I would like for our listeners to know the man, the Nat Anderson. How did it all start for you in regarding politics? What was it that led you into politics?
Well, back in 2001, my family and I relocated from Bergen County down here to this town we call Willingboro. I was invited down by a coworker, and when she told me how much she paid for her home, I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, I don't believe it, because based on the cost of living up north, it's a big disparity, big difference. So I come down and I said, whoa, house was beautiful. So I said to the realtor, I said, hey, take me to your most expensive section. And she took us over here to Country Club, where I'm at now. This was in 2001. So I've been down here since then for 24 years. I've had the opportunity to raise my family. I have 3 children. I currently have a fiance, Dr. Neely Hackett, and we have a dog named Q. I got to mention the dog, because if she hears this interview and I don't mention the dog, it's going to be problems. So with that being said, my children were smaller. In 2002 was the first spring we had down here. I started getting involved with the recreational sports. So I've had the privilege of getting to know the community, the members of the community, through coaching baseball, of which I became the president of the league, basketball, and also coaching football. So during all of this, that was from about 2002, and in 2006, I was approached by a gentleman who worked for the governor's office. He was involved in the local politics within this community. And he said, hey, have you ever thought about politics? And, I said, nah, not at all. I said, I'm not interested, no interest. And he said, honestly speaking, I truly believe you would be a good fit. He says, I've been watching you and how you can galvanize people, galvanize volunteers to assist with sports, and especially with baseball. As you know, Benny, you got to clean the field. You got the concession stands. You got so many pieces that one person can't do. But I had the ability to galvanize folks to want to roll up their sleeve, volunteer, and just make things happen. So after several conversations with this gentleman, he invited me to a Democratic meeting of the Willingboro Democratic Club. During the course of that meeting, I had an opportunity to observe. And as he started to enlighten me about politics itself, pretty much what's happening at the local level, the powers, the abilities that I had to make a difference in a community, if that was of my interest. So with that being said, shortly thereafter, they had an election for president, vice president. So I said, you know what? Let me throw my name in the hat. So at that point, I did win the election to become vice president. At the time, the president was Miss Lizzie Mae Morris. She is one of the matriarchs of Willingboro. She's the only woman I knew who made pies for the governors, for 4 different governors, Democratic governors, and was able to walk them in his office without an appointment. That was Miss Lizzie Mae Morris. She was the foundation behind the Police Athletic League get going. She's done so much. It's too much, to the point where this past year in 2024, we were blessed and had the privilege to name Sportsman Field, rename it to the Lizzie Mae Morris Field in her honor. That's how much of an impact she had on this community. And folks asked, how come I didn't take the president's role? And I said, you know what? I will never do that. I respect my elders. And what I understand is you first have to be a good follower. You have to be a great follower before you can be a good leader. And I said, if I follow in her footsteps, when it's my time, her folks that follow her will now become mine. All right. And that's the way this thing went. And I stuck with her, stayed by her side until the day she died. I saw her the day before she died over at Lord's Hospital. After which I became the president of the Democratic Club. I eventually became the chairperson for the Democratic Committee. And in 2009, there was an opportunity to run for city council. I interviewed, there was 11 of us. I was one of the top 3 that had the privilege to go before council to interview before them so that they could make a selection. So during the course of that process, I was not selected. And I never forget, one of the council people said to me, now that you haven't been selected, what are you going to do? And I looked at her and I said, I'm still going to run. And I'll never forget this, Benny. They said, no, that's not how we do things down here. And I said, well, do I need to respectfully remind you, I'm not from down here. I'm from up north. We do things different. So I'm going to tie up my shoes and I'm going to run. So I prayed about it. And I said, you know what? I threw my name in the hat. So during the course of that election cycle, they had already identified who they wanted to fill the vacant seat. 2 weeks into the race, 2 weeks into the primary period, I received a call from the county, the Democratic County, the Burlington County Democratic Party. And the leaders at that time was Rick Purr and Mr. Jeff Myers, who was the treasurer. They asked me, they said, are you still interested in running? And I said, well, I am going to run. I'm just not running as part of the machine, but I'm going to run off the line. I have financing and let's see what happens. They said, okay, hung up the phone. 2 weeks after that, and let me just tell you how good God is. 2 weeks after that, I get a call and they said, guess what? I said, what? They said, you're on the line. And I said, huh? I said, what do you mean? She said, the incumbents that were on the line were removed for whatever reasons that I had nothing to do with. I just raised my hand and said, thank you, Jesus. And that was in 2009. I've been in office since 2010 to this day. So right now, I'm finishing up my 4th term, 16 years. I'm in my re-election cycle right now, looking to get voted in on June 10th for my 5th consecutive term. So that's how the story of my politics began, how I got involved, how I can't get away from it because I love the opportunities it has provided me to make a difference in my community.
Councilman Anderson, as we go forward, it's important for our listeners to know for a 16-year being an elected official, I'm sure there had been adversities throughout the years and situations that have come up that, because politics is politics, and it seems as though we're always, not we as the public, but there's always situations where we put a spotlight on those that are in office, and they're always looking for some type of wrinkle that may come up. In those 16 years, has there been any situations that may have tried to tarnish the name of Nat Anderson?
Oh, absolutely. There have been trials, tribulations, and adversary, adversarial situations that have come up. But during all of this, during the 16 years, like I said, God has walked me through this. But most recently, the biggest wrinkle that I've experienced is in 2024, January of 2024, the FBI served me with a complaint. Now, remember, they served me with a complaint, not an indictment. And the complaint went back to, and I can only discuss it in so much of a detail, but it went back to a situation in 2015, right after my divorce. It involved the family home. The family home, was sold once the divorce happened. The house was sold. I was able to maintain residency through doing a lease, filing everything properly, paying all the bills. But in 2024, I was approached by the FBI indicating that I had committed wire fraud, that I had committed conspiracy because I was not supposed to stay in a home that was sold as a short sale. So I'm looking confused, trying to understand, what's happening, why is this happening? And as we go through this case, one of the things I noticed, I only noticed it after I started to pray about it. And I said, if there was anything here, Lord, why wouldn't this have been an indictment right from the door, as you see in so many other cases? It was only a complaint. After turning down several plea agreements, only in August of 2024 did it become an indictment, which was fine. So the only thing the indictment means is that it's worthy enough based on the information the prosecution provided to the jury. And during this process, there's no defense. I have no defense team, nothing. It's only what the prosecution tells a group of folks. So based on their narrative, it was enough to say, let's indict. So to date, I still don't have a court date sitting in front of me. I'm still going through the process. Plea deals are still coming in, and each plea deal that comes in is lesser and lesser and lesser from where it started from. So during the course of this, folks say to me, how do you continue to smile? Because my God is a good God. All right. My God, during all of this, okay, during this storm I've been going through, when I asked them, I said, Lord, allow peace to be still. Allow the storm to be quiet around me. So as the storm is going on, I'm just walking through nothing but sunshine and blessings. What I do realize, and what I realized through this process, the devil, he can't touch you unless he gets permission from God. Okay? So God says, don't touch my anointing or do my prophets any harm. So during the course of this, I said, Lord, this is happening for a reason. And instead of fighting why it's happening, what's happening, this case is the furthest thing from my mind, because I know God already has it. This thing has been worked out. I'm just going through a process. And during this journey, there's so many things I'm learning. And I truly believe this came upon me because there were some things I needed to rid, some folks I need to get rid of, and some things I needed to see. But bigger than anything, my faith has been strengthened. It's so easy when somebody else is going through something and you tell them, oh, have faith, have this. It's totally different when you yourself is going through it and have to exercise those same teachings. It's a totally different process. But let me share with you, Brother Benny, that this process, this far into it, so many things have happened. And I'm so glad that it has happened, because I know at the end of the day, I will be vindicated. I will be vindicated. It's already been revealed to me through prayer, through dreams. All right. My faith is solid as a rock. And so for that, I am so thankful. And I'm sharing this with you to be transparent. As an elected official, it's all about transparency and trust with the residents and the people that they serve.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching us on WPHY Channel 25, listening to us on WIMG 1300 AM, as well as live365.com WIMG. We're sitting with Councilman Nat Anderson of Willingboro, New Jersey, going over his campaign, his previous endeavors, and where he's planning on taking Willingboro. Once again, Councilman Anderson, good evening and welcome to In the Public Interest.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Benny.
This is great because there are times where we sit down with elected officials and they try to be as transparent as possible, but one thing many of them don't do, and that is include faith. You spoke about faith quite a bit in regards to the situation, and more importantly, and how you got into politics from the start. So it is definitely good to know that there is a faith that is planted inside you that you definitely put forth in your way of thinking, in your way of doing, and how you just live life. God is definitely a present help in your situations and how you go about making your moves in politics as well as a man of faith, and of course in the things that you do for not just you but also in your community. Now, I want to say this to you, Councilman, because again, you spoke about things that you're going through and so forth. How is the campaign going so far?
So far, the campaign is going well. I'm sitting there, we just finished putting out a bunch of yard signs. I have a website. So if anyone wants to take a look at it to see what I represent, what the township represent in depth, they can go to natanderson2025.com. That's natanderson2025.com. On that website, you will have an opportunity to view the accomplishments of the last 4 years. So when I speak of accomplishments, that's just not a Councilman Nat Anderson thing. It has to happen in a partnership, because on a 5-member council, we need the majority, which is 3 votes. But I've had the privilege over the last 4 years to work alongside 4 smart, dedicated, and progressive women. Mayor Samantha Whitfield, Deputy Mayor Dr. Tiffany Worthy, Councilwoman K.M. McIntosh, and Councilwoman Rebecca Perrone. Now, when you have 5 different personalities, let's be clear, and most of us know, we don't get along all the time. But what I will say is our intentions, our goals are for the betterment of this community. And there's nothing wrong with voicing your opinion, even if it differs from someone else's. What I've learned through this process is that sometimes things are said that you may not have ever thought about. And by the time we finish talking and everyone puts their best thinking together, we come out with a better product than what one individual could have done on their own. So I've been blessed for that. And this partnership has allowed us as the Willingboro community and on the municipal side of government to keep taxes. They were flat for 3 years, and we had a decrease in taxes for 2 years. So for the last 5 years, to include the 2025 budget, there will be no tax increase from municipal government. So I have to be clear, because folks will say, oh, my taxes went up. That's not from municipal government. That's from other entities within the township, but not municipal government. So I am so proud that we as a team can hang our hat on that. We take to heart the fiscal responsibility that we owe this community from the standpoint of thinking outside the box. We are a bedroom community. We don't have a lot of large corporations, big businesses to help offset. We also are a veteran community, which means we have a lot of veterans who are 100% disabled, and they do not pay taxes, which is fine. So with that, we have to find different things to offset it. So it's been a challenging task, but at the same time, it's been a rewarding task with what we've been able to do. So just to give you a little insight as to what we've done most recently, and I'm just going to read it off my notes here. This way, I don't miss anything. You know, for the last 4 years, we maintained a zero tax increase. We've projected a flat budget for this year. This is all being done while we continue to enhance the quality of life for our residents by adding the following attractions. We're preparing to introduce the Willingboro Performing Arts Center, the WPAC, the Willingboro PAC, which will be housed at the JFK Center. It's a 500-seat state-of-the-art theater that's being built. It will have the pricing of the venue would be in line with that of the Dell, with that of some of the other theaters in Philly that attracts big artists, big names. We've brought in Duckett Entertainment Group to manage this facility, to bring in these top-notch acts. So we will be able to compete with the surrounding cities around us, especially Philly, because that's where everyone wants to go for a show. But now we're bringing this attraction to Willingboro. I believe we're scheduled to open up in the spring. I believe it's September 14th, roughly. But this is something that we're looking forward to. We will be doing upgrades to the JFK Center, which includes expansion of our senior center, multi-purpose turf fields, so that we can host different tournaments, different events. The fields will house soccer, football, field hockey, and a number of other activities. We're putting in brand new pickleball courts over at Mill Creek Park. And these is just some of the main attractions that are coming. There's so many others, to my point, they are all listed on my website, but we're doing this without raising taxes. So for that, I am so proud, because so many times people say, I'm paying all these taxes, but I don't see anything. Where are the taxes going? Now we're giving you things that you can touch and feel to make you feel like, okay, it's worth what I'm paying.
Councilman,
yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but you spoke of Mill Creek Park. A lot of our listeners know Mill Creek Park very well because of the Jazz Fest that Correct. They have there during the summertime.
Correct.
And also, but I want to talk in reference to something else that goes on in many of our cities. And we tend not to speak much of it, but it's important to talk about it. And the crime in some of these cities. How are we, or I should say, how is Willingboro working towards bettering the cities and to make the city better when it comes to the crime rate and things of that nature?
All right, well, that's actually the next part of my platform, which I address, which is public safety. So public safety is a top priority. We will continue to work to support law enforcement, invest in crime prevention strategies, and ensure first responders have the resources they need to keep our community safe. By fostering strong community partnerships and advocating for smart policies, I will continue to promote safety while respecting the liberties and building trust between citizens and law enforcement. So with that, some of the things we've been able to do to continue to work towards a safe community, we've established a new traffic unit within the Willingboro Police Department. We've hired 5 new officers, so now we have 70 police officers on the team. We've initiated a gunshot detection program. It was done through a $99,000 grant. We've implemented sound thinking technology to enhance community safety. We've hired 4 full-time EMTs and 1 supervising EMT to provide emergency services during the daytime shift, which allows us to provide coverage for 7 days a week and expand our emergency services to increase our emergency response time. In the state of New Jersey, there are 507 police departments, with 31 of them being accredited. Willingboro was able to sustain its accreditation for the last 13 years after being one of the first police departments in New Jersey to achieve this. So with that said, when you hear Willingboro, a lot of times you hear negative conversations. And one of the things, and I'm just going to say this is my belief, I'm not going to put it on anybody else, but being an African-American community, you often are highlighted, spotlighted for all the negative activities that go on. But when I've had an opportunity to review the police data from other communities, their crime levels in different categories aren't that different. The only difference is we get highlighted, they don't. It's all about what you report and what categories are you reporting in. So we are as transparent as we can be. If there is something of a murder, a robbing, a stabbing, we line it up as it should be lined up. Not everyone reports accordingly. So when you look at these reports, I'm sitting here going, wow, there's not much of a difference here. But at the same time, we as an African-American community always get highlighted. And that's one of the things I look at. So now, not to say that crime doesn't happen here, it happens everywhere. But one thing I will say, we have been on a track record for at least the last 3 years in solving a lot of these unsolved cases. We've had several murders take place, but I'm happy to say they have all been solved. So we do everything we can do to prevent it. But human nature is going to be human nature. We just do our best, once again, to work against it. But during those times when we're unsuccessful, we do make sure, we bring those who commit these crimes to justice. So I have to thank Chief Ian Bucks and his whole team over at the Willingboro Police Department for doing a wonderful job in their efforts to continue to keep this community safe.
Councilman Anderson, I have to ask you one question. As we get ready to close, first, thank you once again for taking this time to join me here on In the Public Interest. But if there was ever a simple word, or I should say a word of encouragement that comes to mind, what would that word be if you were to encourage someone that's listening right now?
When things seem to go left, when there's those days you don't have the energy to just get up, pray. That's the one word, pray. Prayer is so wonderful. It doesn't cost a thing. Pray. It makes such a difference. And the smallest prayer doesn't have to be nothing magnificent, but be specific when you pray for whatever that prayer is. No need is too little or too small. God hears it all. Pray.
Councilman Anderson, I want to thank you for taking this time to join me here on In the Public Interest. Continue to do great things, not just within Willingboro. I believe God is going to expand what you do. That's just my personal opinion. Of course, God will show you what your next move shall be. But I just thank you for taking this time to join me here on In the Public Interest. This has been a great opportunity to sit with you and get to know more about what you do in Willingboro and, of course, with your life. There's so much more we didn't even touch. Maybe you have to get back on the show with me one time, if at all possible, in the near future, and we can talk more about the things that Councilman Anderson is doing, not just for Willingboro, but other great things that you are being led to do.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for the opportunity to come on the program. And if I can just close with this, for all my Willingboro residents, June 10th, vote Nat Anderson.
Definitely. If I was a Willingboro resident, well, okay. But yet, still, it is great. All the best to you, Councilman Anderson.
All right. Thank you. And have a good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, you have tuned into WIMG 1300 AM, as well as WPHY Channel 25 and Live365.com WIMG. We thank you for joining us here on In the Public Interest. I am your host, Benny Macklin, sitting in with none other than Councilman Nat Anderson on this night. May you have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.